And we're live. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another show of the Savvy Real Estate Investor podcast. Pretty excited today. We have Shelon Hutch. Shelon Hutch is he goes by Hutch, the Marine Investor. Hutchinson is a Master Gunnery Sergeant E9 in the United States Marine Corps. Hutch has successfully executed over 2.4 million in single-family real estate transactions, which include over 870,000 as a real estate agent, which he's currently not active doing, and co-sponsor over 26 million in multifamily property acquisition, totaling 352 units in the Southeast. Hutch is a member of the Hunter Thompson Race Masters. Hutch has earned a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. He is the husband of Athena for 20 years and the father of three beautiful children. Sheldon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Man, I'm pretty excited about this because what we did not say in the bio is the fact that you are in Japan, right? And
Oh
you're
yeah,
able to do all of this from over there.
yeah. So just to be fair, I'm only going to be here for 6 months, which I'm already almost halfway through the deployment. Right now it's 12:21 after midnight, right? So 2100, yeah. So it's good
Dude,
times, man.
yeah, I appreciate you being here because you gotta adjust. I guess a lot of things that are happening while you're over there, you gotta adjust to the time of over here, right? Um,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's awesome, man. So the topic today, we wanted to dive into syndications, right? Which is what you have been very active in, being a co-sponsor in multifamily syndications, and I am as well. Um, what can you tell us a little bit about the background on you? How is it that you went from, or how is it that you're in the military and you started doing syndications?
Man, so look, um, I started off in a single family space, right? And then as I approached retirement, I sat down with Athena as I believe that a lot of people do from time to time with their spouse, because look, that is your team, your team at home, right? So it's important that you're having those conversations and you're doing long-term planning to ensure that your visions align for the future of your family. So Athena, she said to me once, she said, Shalon, I'm concerned, right? Because when you do 20 plus years in the Marine Corps, there's a certain level of commitment and passion that comes with that, right? And she said, I'm concerned. I think that I believe that when you retire, you're gonna dress up in a uniform on a Saturday morning and sit in the living room like, come on, I gotta do something else, right? So then we started to dissect what does post active duty look like, right? Establishing what I like to do most, and real estate is one of those things that I really do like doing. My dad was teaching me about a single family space, and I did that, right? Also became a realtor because my dad was a realtor and he taught me that as well. So it was not until 2019 that I transitioned to multifamily space. So the reason why I'm in multifamily is because look, I'm approaching retirement and I want to do something that I am passionate about, so I can put all the passion that I have for being a Marine, senior enlisted, into creating an impact into people's life, whether it be for passive investors or for the peoples whose life we will be improving by providing them safe, affordable place to live.
Dude, I love that. I love where you're coming from and the angle you're approaching it. So you started in 2019 doing real estate syndications. Can you break
Right.
down, it's very basic for some of the audience that may not know what even a syndication might be?
Oh man, so I just did a meetup this afternoon, and it was just happened to be several military members, and I was able to break it down to where we can understand it from a Marine Corps perspective of decentralizing authority, of bringing small teams together to accomplish a big mission of, say, a company, right? But I won't do that here. So
I like, dude, I
syndication,
like that, man. Yeah, I like
I
the way
got
you were
you.
going with that.
Yeah, syndication is a big word for a simple process that is not easy, right? So syndication, all it is, the big thing, the bluff, which is the bottom line up front, is the bringing of capitals together to purchase a large assets, right? So For example, there is public information on the folks who actually brought several families together to purchase the Empire State Building in New York. A lot of folks can research that on different search engine platforms, right? So all syndication is identifying a big asset that we want to purchase that can provide a predetermined or projected good returns, right? High yield return, and we identify how many capital we need to raise from our passive investors. We bring that capital together and we purchase that asset. Now that capital that we're raising from our passive investors is going towards the purchase price, but also what we call a capital expenditure, capex, to bring the property up to its highest and best use. So all the capital combined, we have to project to where we can provide our investor a returns that makes sense, or a return that meet their investment criteria.
Love it, man. So
Yeah,
if I'm someone that is kind of starting to get into real estate and I'm trying to figure
right.
out, do I want to go buy a single family home? I heard this guy talking about syndications. Why will I, why will I be interested or enticed to go and put my money with you in a syndication instead of going and buy the property that is for sale down the street?
Yeah, 100%. So I trust that you're talking about difference between single family and multifamily. Look, single family properties are assessed based on what your neighbors are selling the properties for. Now, for multifamily properties, right? So go back to the single family. No matter how much you improve the property, it's still gonna go by the comparative market analysis for the properties in the area. Now, when you're buying multifamily properties, yes, there's a cap rate that kind of gauge the community or gauge that city, but at the same time, the value of the property relies on that property's ability to provide a stream of income known as a net operating income. So with the net operating income and kind of like the average capitalization rate, that is used to determine the value of the property. So when you identify multifamily properties, and we're talking about 5 units and above, you identify multifamily properties that you want to purchase, then you get to do a deep dive in the analysis to make sure that you can provide a good return.
Love it. So you brought
Yeah,
a topic there, right? Which is, you said that they're valued based on their income, and essentially we renovate those. You increase the income of the property, right? To increase the value of the
correct.
property.
Yeah.
How do you improve the value of the apartment complex?
Yeah, 100%. So there's a lot of things you can do to improve the property. So in the initial assessment, what you want to look for is this property being managed properly? Case in point, we purchased 167 units in Augusta, Georgia, back in the end of 2020, and one of the things that we noticed was that they had way too many on-site staff. So they had a lot of on-site staff, and they were not really getting done what they're supposed to get done to bring the property to the highest and best use. So when you think about improving the processes, the management processes of that property, then that's money you don't have to spend, because think, if you minimize the amount of on-site staff, now we're looking at about $33,000 in different markets, right? About $33,000 that we don't have to pay somebody to do to maintain the property. Granted that we can execute the business plan with our projected on-site staff, right? So you do that assessment, and there's a lot of things you can do to ensure that you don't have to spend a lot of money to improve the quality of the property or the performance of the property. Now, as you get more into it, at some point you're going to have to do what's called force appreciation. But before you get to force appreciation, one additional tactics that you could use to improve the value of the property, the bottom line, is you can identify what is the current market value for each one of those units, classification, right? So 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 1.5 bath, 2 bedroom, 2 bath, so on and so forth. And then you aim to bring those units up to market rent without making any improvement. Now, if you start to see reduction in your you start to see a reduction in the occupancy, then at that point you can start making some renovation to give folks a higher quality project, if that makes sense.
What's the occupancy that you will say this is where we aim to be? Because there's always an occupancy no matter what, right? That's sorry, a
Right.
vacancy in any apartment complex, they're not always 100%, right? But what's the number that you aim to be at, and what number, once it goes past the number, that's when you start implementing the strategy that you just mentioned?
Okay. Yeah. So might have misspoke. If you see your occupancy going down, then at that point you start renovating property. But yes, so if we're using agency funding to purchase a property, one of the things they look for stabilized property, which is usually above 90%. So when we underwrite a property, and if it's above 90%, one of the things that we put in our contract to the seller is for them to understand that this price is contingent on them continue to maintain the property in current or better standing, and also in a stabilized stature which is above 90%. So, but when we underwrite a property, we want to underwrite, we want to stress what we call stress test the property. And this is to identify at what point can we have our occupancy and we're no longer able to pay our bills. So we're looking at about in the 75 76% rate, right? So if we are 76% occupied, we should be able to make all our expenses and pay all our bills and our debt services as well, right? So that's one of the things that we look at.
Love it, man. I love that.
Yeah,
So that's a stress test. You want to see that at least you can be uh 76% occupied and be able to pay all of your expenses plus your debt service on that
correct.
property, right?
Yeah, but
That's like,
keep in mind, we also buying properties in markets where the average vacancy is less, significantly less than 10%. So if we get down to 75%, something really, really bad is going on in the market or the economy or something like that. So, and these are things that we are able to articulate to our investors as we see things start trending a specific way. And then it's up to us as the operator to ensure that we are managing the property to the best way possible. Yeah.
what are some of the things? So you invest in the Southeast primarily, right?
Right.
Um, is there a reason why you prefer the Southeast over anywhere else?
Yeah, so there's a lot of really good markets in America. Take for example, Austin is one of the hottest market in the country, right? Dallas, and I think in the top 10, five of those markets is in Texas. To include, not to include, but also additional Phoenix is a pretty hot market as well. But Jacksonville, Huntsville, different places in Florida, Georgia, Alabama is also seeing significant growth. And one of the things we're looking at is population growth. So if you want to, one of the things that you have to look for is your supply and demand, and population growth drives demand for the supply that we offer, right? So we want to see something like, so when you look at the migration trend, it's like somebody pick up America, shake it, and things start falling to the southeast, Texas, Arizona, and Nevada, getting a lot of traffic as well. So we want to buy in places where people are going. So job growth also usually brings population growth, and when that happens, we create a higher demand for the product that we offer. Additionally, when you have income growth in an area as well, then that provide us the flexibility to increase the rent we want to charge for to get the property operating to its highest and best use. So we want to make sure that there is population growth and job growth, but also income growth. Additionally, we also want to see that the value or the sale price for condos and single family homes are actually increasing as well, right? So that also um, help to push people towards renting versus purchase.
Dude, I love that. Yeah,
Mm.
I love that last part. Is there a number that you guys are looking for as far as median income in that area versus the rent, the market rent or the potential rent for that property that you guys are looking to buy? So like, let's say it's three times rent for the median income that you're shooting for, or is it five times? Do you have a metric that you're like, we won't go below X?
Yeah, three times. that's
Three
that's the
times. You
easy
won't go
one.
below.
Uh,
If it's less than three times the market rent for that property, then you guys, that's probably a strike on there.
I did. a disqualifier, and the property managers are tracking that as well. And that's one of the things they're taking, telling us we got a 26 unit that we are heavily renovating in Augusta, Georgia, and it's doing well. We bought it back in December, and we are about 36% already completed on a renovation in right under 8 months. So one of the things the property managers is telling us that there's a lot of people applying for our property, but they're not qualifying. But we have a good occupancy on the property right now, and but some folks are not qualifying because they don't meet that 3x of the
Mm.
income versus rent. Yeah.
What was the is are those rents that you guys are getting after the renovation, are they um higher than what you guys were projecting?
Significantly higher. So our goal for this property, especially 26 unit that I mentioned earlier, our goal was, I believe, right around $700 for in year one, and we renovate 10 units so far, and we are at, for the renovated units, over $900 per month on those units. So significant growth, and it's not some we kind of projected this up front, but we wanted to be more conservative with our underwriting. So that's not something that we tell our investors up front, right? So we want to under promise and over deliver. And the good thing about that is whenever our investors get their capital back and their returns is significantly more than expected, then at that point, now we're looking at possibly repeated investors. And as long as we continue to perform, and their capital continue to work, can perform more than they expected, then we'll always have those repeated investors. So yes, we started off at 645 was the average rent. We set a first year goal of $700 for the first year, and we are surpassing that significantly.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome for
Yeah.
you guys. The
Yes,
I
sir.
like that you brought up that you are always putting the investors first, right? And then it should always be that way. There, thanks to investors, passive investors joining on these deals, is that we're able to put all these deals together and essentially do this business, right? So when you're not putting them first, you're essentially cutting out yourself from doing future business
Yeah.
because you want those repeat investors, right?
Correct. For example, the first syndication that I did was a 55 unit that I co-sponsor in South Carolina. And what happened is that as it was getting ready to close on this property, the the institution that was getting our funding from reduced the amount of funding we was going to get. So we had a couple of different options. We can go back to the investors that we already raised a significant amount of capital from, or we can bring additional investors to the table and still give the projected returns. But the caveat is for the sponsors, we had to go from an 80-20. Excuse me. Excuse me. We had to go from an 80-20 to a 90-10 split, right? And this is so we can maintain face with our investors. So yes, we get a significant reduction in our income as the active investors, but at least we maintain face with the passive investors because we already raised a few $1 million for the project before the proceed was reduced, or before the leverage was reduced. So to maintain face with those investors, we kept it and we took the reduction in our income.
So essentially, and just for some people listening, Eddie, he said they went from 80-20 to 90-10, which is a split that happens above their preferred return, right? So
Correct.
typically in a syndication, you have a preferred return being given to the passive investors, and typically you will see a 70-30 or 80-20 split above that, with a bigger percentage going to the passive investors, right?
Correct.
But you're
Yes, sir.
saying you guys adjusted that to a 90-10, so even more favorable for the investors. Uh, to be able to still hit those projections even though you raise more money.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Awesome, man. Dude, that's awesome. That's really looking out there for people, and trying to do good business. Before the show, we were talking about five uh, bank accounts that you need to have when you're syndicating an apartment complex.
Yeah. So money becomes a big deal, right? And when you have property managers who have the best of intention, and the asset manager will also have the best of intention in making sure this property gets to the highest and best use, it's important that we have different pots, right? So we can prioritize our funding, right? So the 5 accounts that you want to set up whenever you have a syndication is operating account, and this the account that your property manager will have access to, right? And they will use that for regular expenses. Your capex is what's going to take care of your renovation. Your distribution is the part where you put your capital that's going to give you your owner's distribution and also your passive investors distribution. Additionally, you definitely want to segregate your security deposit from your residents that you have living there to ensure that you can give that back to them, so it's always there and it's not confused for any kind of other fundings. And of course, you up your reserves. You want to make sure you have reserves for those rainy days. One of the things we saw in 2020 and also 2021 is that, most in 2020, is that there was a significant amount of uncertainty, and where some syndicators got into some issues was they did not have enough reserve. And I trust that you see what some of the financial institution and agency, what they were requiring 9 to 8 months of reserves when you purchase a property. So reserve is absolutely important because it's help you to weather I mean to get through the storm, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree. I love it, man. Um, there's you focus on income producing investments, right? So like uh,
Correct.
apartment complexes that are cash flowing. I take from that you don't do any like ground up construction.
We currently do not, right? But we don't count that out because when you look at when you have conversation with your investors, there's some folks that want cash flow. There's some folks that want their money to beat um beat the market, right? Beat inflation, or some folks just want to have a lump sum later at some predetermined time, right? So when you're able to segregate your investors, I believe there will come a point where we have enough investors in our investor pool to where we have enough group to say we can, one, syndicate for a ground up development, or we could possibly run a ground up development for ourselves. But currently, most of our investors are focused on cash flow. We actually have one of our investors, my business partner name is Heath, and it's the name H squared, Hutch and Heath, right? One of our investors, they tell us, Hutch, Heath, I can't take appreciation and depreciation to the grocery store. I'm retired. I need cash flow. You know what I mean? So a conversation like those, we have to listen to our investors and see exactly what they need to ensure that we are providing them the best vehicle to move their capital in the direction that they want it to be moved.
Yeah, I love that because everybody's in a different stage. So like this person
Yes,
you're
sir.
mentioning, he just wants a cash flow to live his lifestyle, right? Is that right?
Right. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, I love that. Um, how is it that apartment complexes in apartment syndications are a uh, hedge against inflation?
Yeah. So when you think about it, if you have your money in your savings account, right? Say, for example, last year at the beginning of 2021, you had $100,000 in your savings account. The value of that $100,000 right now is significantly less because of inflation. As far as the purchasing power of that money is significantly less. Now, it depends on what matrix you look at. I think most of them right now is saying right around inflation was 70%. So we see quantitative easing where the Fed push a lot of capital into the market, right, to maintain confidence in the economy, so on and so forth, for various reasons. But as inflation got to a significantly high level, then they do quantitative tightenings where they raise interest rates, so on and so forth, and things come back down. But when in as far as the apartment complexes, the way we edge against inflation, the average goal for inflation for the Feds is usually right around 3%, 2%, 3%, depends on what year it is, right? So when you look at our projection for increasing rents on each unit, and this is the most basic form, increasing rent for each unit, we're looking at about 2 to 3% growth in rental in the rent costs. Now, if you look at most markets that we're renting in, I mentioned earlier the 26 unit we bought, we're seeing significant increase in our rent from 645 to up upwards of 900, over $900. So that's a big difference, right? Almost 50%, right? Increase in that. So when you look at that, that's a significant edge against the 7% rise that we saw last year in inflation.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of it's almost as if you're switching spots, right? Because usually you think of inflation and you think it's, oh, I'm being affected by this, right? But like someone else is doing this to me. But then if you're switching positions, right, and now you're the one that is benefiting from it because the cost of things are rising. So the cost of an apartment complex, uh, looping it all back together, right? The rent goes up, and uh, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, the value of the apartment complex is based on the income, so everything just increases, right? So it
Yep,
benefits you.
100%. Yes, sir.
Love it, dude. Earlier you mentioned
Yes,
about a
we.
meetup. Um, you said that you were at a meetup. Do you host a meetup?
Yeah, so we used to also meet up on Mondays, every Mondays, but things got complicated. I moved to the West Coast. Now I'm deployed, so now we are thinking about starting up. I'm contacting a couple of guests to get it running on Saturday mornings, probably around 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I've got we got to do the calculation for that, as far as Central Mountain Time, East Coast, and of course for me Japan time until I return by Thanksgiving. Right, so we're looking to start it back up in the near future. But while I'm here, it's important that I connect with, I'll create a network out here. There's significant amount of retired folks out here, a lot of veterans out here. And my goal is to share information with them because when they retire, what they're doing is leveraging their their 20 plus years of experience in most cases in pretty much corporate America or a contracting job, a GS job, so on and so forth. So I want to provide information to them to let them know that they do not have to work in corporate America for 20 plus years post retirement from the Marine Corps. There is a way that they can put their capital to work harder than they have worked for it, and they can minimize the amount of time that is spent in corporate America post active duty. Right. So I'm starting a community out here. I've met a few folks today, and the goal is to create a ecosystem that they can continue to build on while they're here. They share information. I can be back in the state, and we can continue networking together to make sure that we all are growing together. Right. So I host a live meetup here in Okinawa, and we're looking to start back up with the Southeast multifamily meetup.
Love it, man.
Yes, sir.
Uh, Sheldon, you are very successful. You have a very successful career in the military. You have a very successful career in real estate. What do you attribute most of your success to?
So here's the thing. Um, I find people that look like me. I find a lot of people that look like me. And I say that sometime, and some folks might frown, whatever the case may be, got it to reach their own. Now, my explanation of people that look like me is a little bit different than what society would think, right? It has nothing to do with with your physical appearance. So, like you, my friend Satch, you are aspiring to improve the trajectory of your family's bloodline. I believe that most people are looking to do that as well. So, more people that look like me are veterans who have served 20 plus years in the Marine Corps, and they're aspiring to create more flexibility and more control of time post retirement. So I identify people who have been on active duty and have done what I'm aspiring to do at a higher level. So people like Brian Briscoe, Anthony Pinto, and a couple of the folks that I network with who are a little bit ahead of me, right? I network with those folks and I learn from them. I learn from them, but I'm also learning with them, right? So I find for my success, I find people that look like me, brother.
I like that, man. I like how you
Yes,
you
sir.
you give it a twist to that. I'm gonna start using that. Um,
Yes, sir.
Sheldon, we're reaching the end of the podcast here, and it was awesome having you. How can people find out more about you?
So find out more about me and what we do is go to hsquarecapital.com. See, we have a operators manual on there where if you download the operators manual, yes, I get your email, but at the same time, you get to understand how you can leverage apartment syndication to be a catalyst in your financial future, right? So we are here to ensure that you can continue doing as a passive investor, that you can continue doing what you love to do while we be the best stewards of your capital to make sure it's working as hard as possible with the projected returns that we underwrite our properties to.
Dude, I love it, man. We're gonna put that link on the show notes for everyone to be able to click on there. Shelon, it was awesome having you. Thank you for your service. We look forward to having you back in the States, and you enjoy your Thanksgiving when you're back over here.
Yes, sir. Appreciate the support and this opportunity to share with your audience.
Thank you, Shelon. See you, man.
All right. Yes, sir.